In this video, we'll look at how to get started with the Apryse SDK and Python 3. I'm using Python version 3.11, but the SDK works with versions from 3.5 onwards. Okay, first thing to do is to install it, and you can use pip directly or you can use Python-m pip. The latter is recommended in case your version of pip is actually tied to a previous version of Python, but the choice is up to you. Note that I'm not using the default Python package index, PyPy. I'm using the dedicated Apryse one. The version of the Apryse SDK on PyPy is no longer being updated, so please use the Apryse version. Cool, that's installed. Now let's create a file within a code editor. I'm going to use VS Code, but you can use whichever editor you prefer. In a moment, we'll see how we can do some really complex work with Python, but first let's look at a very simple file, and we'll call it simple.py, and we'll see the bare minimum that you need in order to use the Apryse SDK. The important things to note are that we're importing the Apryse SDK. We're then initializing PDFnet using a license key, and you can get a free trial license from the Apryse website. We're then doing various work with PDFnet, in this case with the PDFdoc object. And finally, we're calling pdfnet.terminate. This is important in order to release any resources that are in use. So let's run that code, and after just a few moments, it will have created a brand new empty PDF. Creating an empty PDF is interesting from a getting started point of view, but isn't actually very helpful. Let's use the Apryse SDK to do something far more useful. We'll extract data from a receipt. This is the kind of receipt you might get when you go shopping. We can see as humans that there's a number of line items, each with a quantity and price. And what we're interested in is seeing how many apples we bought, for example, and the price that we paid. But there's a number of things in the column quantity, so we have to map the quantity to the value we want. And also we want to get out the subtotal, the tax, and the grand total. This is exactly the kind of thing that the Apryse key value pair data extraction module is great at. So let's see how we can incorporate that into our Python app. Some functionality within the Apryse SDK requires add-on modules in order to function. And this is a list of some of the ones we've got. There's OCR, CAD, advanced imaging, and so on. We're particularly interested in the data extraction module. And we can install this either by manually copying files in or by using pip install. So let's do that. This will take a little while, so I'll speed it up. Let's go back to our Python file and update the code. First of all, we're going to add the data extraction module as an import, and then we're now using that module, and it very simply says extract data, taking an input file and an output file, and in this case we're looking at generic key value pairs. So let's run the code now, and the data extraction model is interpreting the PDF, and when it's complete we'll end up with a JSON file that contains the key value pairs and their locations. What you do with the data in the JSON file once it's available is up to you. What we're going to do in this example is we're going to take the data and we're going to use it to mark up the original receipt PDF to indicate where the key and value pairs are located. Let's go back to our code. First we need to import some more types from our Apryse SDK, including rect, square, line annotation and so on, which are types of annotation. Next, we're going to take the JSON file we just created and parse it, looking for each of the key value elements in turn. As we find these, we're going to take the keys and the values, and we're going to create annotations to indicate where they are on the page. And we're doing that by creating a square annotation. Finally, we just need to save the document, and we'll save it as linearized as we did before. When we run this code, we'll end up with an annotated document with the values in red and the keys in blue. But there's no obvious way from this document to show which keys relate to which values. Let's do that next. by doing more annotations using the JSON data we already have. The final part of the puzzle is to mark lines between the keys and the values that they relate to. Adding the line annotations themselves is easy, but making it that they don't overlap one another makes the code a little more complex, particularly because some of the values are left aligned, some center aligned, and some right aligned. Okay, let's save that and run it once again. So this is the final document, and we can see that the key item has values of apples, bread, milk, eggs, and chicken breast. And we can see the same for quantity and price. But subtotal only has one value of 24.25, and we can see the amount of tax and the grand total, and they've been all correctly identified with no direct supervision from a human. That's pretty awesome. We've gone from a receipt we knew nothing about to a receipt that's been annotated, and we can access the data in any way that we want. And this is just one of the many things you can do with the Apryse SDK using Python. I hope you found it useful. If you have, click on subscribe and you'll hear when we issue new videos. But until then, catch you next time. Bye for now.